All right. So, again, please make sure you have out your Big Brother document, your Big Brother worksheet here. And again, all I asked you to do was to record what you are doing on in a 24-hour period, right? And hopefully, again, you didn't have to be overly specific, but specific enough where we could kind of think a little bit about what you do and analyze a little bit about what you do on a relatively daily basis. So, like for example, some of you might have been an after-school activity, like softball or football or whatever, right? Hockey, I guess, or whatever else, right? That's how you watch a hockey film, right? Yeah, there we go. Are you in the Flyers then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Good, cool. Or maybe it's work, right? For some of you, it might be work. For some of you, it might be just going home and relaxing and chilling and doing things like that. Whatever it is, that's totally cool. But our whole goal in doing this has nothing to do with me tracking you or Bill Gates put microchipping your brain or whatever other bullcrap conspiracy theory story there is now. So it had nothing to do with that. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to read through your list. Just read through the last 24 hours. Just real briefly, I'll give you like 10 seconds. Read through there. Now, here's what I want you to do. Scroll down to the bottom, which you should be at anyway. Okay, and you should see a little bit of a blank space. Everybody see that? Not much, but a little bit. Here's what I want you to do. Think very carefully. Here's where we're going to start analyzing some of this stuff. Think very carefully about how the government may have influenced you in some way, affected you in some way, right? And I want you to see if and this is like, you could put like 30 down. I'm only going to ask you for 3. See if you can find 3 ways in which the government has influenced you or affected you in some way, shape, or form based on what you wrote down on your sheet in the last 24 hours. That's all I'm asking. Okay? And I'll give you, say, about a minute or 2. Okay, to come up with those. About a minute. Let's say that. About a minute. All right, go ahead.
Which one do I do? I'm still on the brother.
The Big Brother, yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so let's see what some of you came up with, right? What somebody just throw it out there. What's one way in which in the last 24 hours the government has affected you, influenced you, whatever the case may be? Aiden, what do you got?
They kind of make us go to school.
Absolutely, that's a very obvious one, right? The state of South Dakota says you have to be in school until the age of 18. You don't have a choice. Which, by the way, it used to be 16, but they changed it, what, about 7 years ago, Mr. Mossman? Ish?
Yeah.
Something like that? Okay? So you're, I'm not saying that's the only reason you're here. Hopefully you're here because, you want to graduate and stuff, but legally, you have to be here. You don't have a choice. Some of you might be 18, I don't know. But if you're not, you have to be here, right? Please, Logan, what else?
They make you pay for them taxes.
Okay, so if you bought anything,
Yeah.
if you've purchased anything in the last 24 hours, you've had to pay a tax that the government collects, and it goes towards various things, right? If you bought something here in Brandon, that goes to the Brandon sales tax, and it goes towards, like the projects like on Main Street, that never-ending project there, right? It's just crazy how long it's been taking for that long to get done, but it goes towards a variety of things, parks and roads and whatever else. Okay, absolutely. Taxes is a really good thing to think about. Well, let me phrase it. I hate taxes, but I mean, it's a good idea.
Well, if they
right?
rise it up, if something bad happened in the world
True.
or to them.
True. Okay. What else? What else? How else has the government affected you, influenced you in some way, shape, or form in the last 24 hours? What do you think? Sorry, Scott. What do you got? Anything else?
What time we have to go to school?
Okay, how about that, right? I mean, technically, the school is a government entity, so they tell us what time we have to go to school. They affect you right now as far as the school district is concerned. Yep.
We're allowed to practice. We have to practice, like sports-wise.
Okay, good. Right? Activities and such. Yes. Okay, what else?
There's regulations on like the school lunch.
We haven't even gotten into food. Has anybody like eaten or drinking anything in the last 24 hours? I hope you have. Right?
Yeah, everyone.
Okay, so I mean, not only are we talking about taxes, but now we're looking at how that stuff is inspected. When you had lunch, did the lunch ladies just take their bare hands and slop it on your plate? I hope not, because that's illegal. Okay, not to mention the fact all that food before it was even processed and sold, it had to be inspected. Not to mention the fact, like for example, Nick, can I borrow that real quick, please? Thank you, sir. Okay, so if you take a look at this, there are government regulations about what chemicals can be in this plastic. Okay, there are regulations about what chemicals can be in this wrapper. There are regulations that say that they have to tell you what ingredients are in this. They have to tell you how many calories it is. They have to tell you all that stuff. They're required by law to do that. Which, by the way, I love it when it's like just a regular bottle of water, and ingredients are just this water. I freaking hope so.
And for people who are allergic also.
Right, well, it could be. Hopefully you're not allergic to water, otherwise you're gonna have
I'm not allergic. Just nuts.
Can't take a shower. It'd be a little rough. Okay,
Yeah.
what else? What else? Please, Copel.
Like internet access.
Good. How about the internet access? Right? They restrict and limit what can be on there to a certain extent. There's all kinds of regulations, taxes, all kinds of other stuff on the internet. Okay, what else? Please, Jay.
TikTok.
Yeah, which is not going to be around much longer, apparently. I don't know. We'll see. I'm surprised that more people aren't outraged about the First Amendment on that. But yeah, absolutely. How about social media restrictions? Restrictions on what they can put, what they cannot, and in general, yeah. How about the fact that through an executive order, TikTok may not be around much longer, with the accusation, of course, that they are technically owned by a Chinese company who is selling information about Americans to other groups. Whether that's true or not is a whole other story. Yeah. Okay. Who has a job? We have a job? Okay. So let me guess, you guys are all getting paid $1.25, right? $1.25? Isn't that what you got paid? 75 cents? What do you get paid? Is it more than that? Well, it better be. It's because it's what? Minimum wage. The federal government has deemed that you have to make at least a specific amount. Now, keep in mind, waiters and waitresses are a whole other story because, of course, what are they relying on? Tips. Okay? But by and large, they can't just pay you whatever you want. Raise your hand if you got your first job at 9. Why? Why not? Oh, it's illegal. Oh, interesting. It's illegal. Okay. So you couldn't get a job until you were like 14, and in some cases, depending on the job, it might be 16. Why? Because the government
Labor.
said that, right? Exactly. Okay? And by the way, speaking of taxes, for those of you who have a job, what do they always take out? Taxes. All right? Well, how about this? How many of you drove to school today? Okay? Don't even get me started on how many government regulations there are on cars. They have to meet certain specifications. Did you guys do 100 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone? Well, I hope not, because as Popo, the 5-0, are going to get you. Right? Absolutely. You can only get the speed limit's 25, 30, whatever it was. Hopefully you operated with a driver's license, because that's the law too. And by the way, you can only have a specific type of license. Between the ages of 14 and 16, you get a certain type, and then between 16 and 21, you have a certain type. After 21, you get a different type, which says now you are legally obligated. Not obligated. If you're a teacher, you must be obligated. But you legally can drink alcohol. Right? So there's all kinds of stuff there. By the way, hopefully you click it. Click it or get a ticket. I think they're so clever. Have you seen that campaign? Click it or ticket. I wear a seatbelt all the time, but that's one of them. Right? But there's all kinds of laws that regulate all of that as well. How many of you watched TV last night? Okay, or this morning, or whatever. Good, okay? So think about TV even. How many of you were watching, how many of you have seen full-on nudity on CBS? Good, 'cause it can't happen. Can't happen. Right? Now, don't raise your hand and say, no, get it pirated for my friend. I don't need to know that. Okay? Right? I don't need to know any of the details there. Okay? I'm just saying you can't find it on the major networks. Why? Because the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, a government agency, doesn't allow it. You can't. And by the way, how many of you are watching a program, and at the beginning of the program, in the upper left-hand corner, it says like TVMA or TV14 or TV whatever. The government makes them put that up there so that parents can responsibly decide for themselves whether their children should be watching that stuff. Back in our day, okay, if you were buying CDs, which already dates us, nobody buys CDs anymore. When we were buying CDs, you better hope that you had a friend who was 18, because then you could buy all the good music. The ones that had the warning label on the front that said, warning, explicit language. That's when you got the good stuff. Right? Like when you got, Snoop Dogg or Dre or something like that, right? Then you knew you're in it. Because, I could totally relate to that as a white suburban kid from Del Rapids. Nothing more gangster than Del Rapids, except maybe Corson. All right, so you have all this stuff, right, that the government puts out because they think they're doing it in the best interests of the people. All right, and they do all kinds of. Raise your hand if you have a bed. Okay, what if I even told you that bed was inspected according to federal guidelines? Like it has to meet certain federal fire retardant requirements, which I have no idea who draws the short straw. Like, oh, Bill, hate to say it, but you're gonna have to set it on a mattress, and then we're gonna light it on fire to see if it's Or how many of you have seen the tag on a mattress and it says, "Do not remove this tag."
What happens if you do?
Right? Yeah, all that other good stuff, right? Or you will have your fingers cut off and fed to rabid wolverines. They have all these restrictions and all this other stuff, right? Electricity, right? The government basically dictates how much electricity they can produce, how they can produce it, how it gets to your house, all this other good stuff. Anybody build a house recently? Couple looking at you. Your dad owns a construction company, right? I mean, think about all the regulations that you have to go through just to build a house. You have to have a permit for this and a permit for that, and you have this inspected, that inspected. Got to check this out, check this out, check this out. I finished off my basement 2 years ago, and I was like, holy crap! How many different people are going to come traipsing through my basement before I can actually do it? There's like 15 inspectors. It's crazy. Okay, so everything you do, at some point, the government is involved. Oftentimes, we're so used to it because it happens so frequently, we don't even think about it. They're everywhere. And I'm not meaning I'm not meaning that, first of all, in a bad way. And second of all, I'm not meaning about just the federal government. Think about the state and local governments as well. They probably affect us way more than the federal government does. I would be more worried, honestly, about who our mayor is as opposed to our president. Because the mayor has way more power to affect your daily life. That's a fact. Same thing with the governor. Okay? So this is just I'm trying to get you guys to think about how the government influences you and affects you literally almost every moment of your life in some way, shape, or form, whether you realize it or not. All right, and because that's a fact, and it is a fact, we literally just proved this, like everything you do, from the clothes you're wearing, to the desk you're sitting, to the fact that you're freaking here, to how you got here, to what you do when you go home, and how you get home, and all this other stuff, right? All of that stuff is affected by the government, and because that's true, we have to know and think about and learn about a little bit more about what the government does, why they do it, and how they do it. Does that make sense? If this entity is going to affect you to that degree, you should probably learn a little bit more about it. Fair? Right? So to that end, here's the thing. Way back in 1776, okay, the United States, well, let me rephrase, the colonists rebelled against the British, and they decided that they were going to create their own nation, and, damn if they didn't do it. right? 1789 rolls around and they create a constitution. But here's the thing. How did we even get there? Once we broke away from the British, we could do whatever we wanted. Why did we choose what we did? Why did we choose the form of government and the economic system that we did? Like, we could have done anything. Why did we choose what we did?
I think they were unfair.
Maybe. It certainly didn't work for everybody. I guarantee it didn't work for women or African Americans or Native Americans. Wasn't perfect. It still isn't perfect. Never will be. Why? Because it's ruled by imperfect people. But let's put ourselves in that sort of situation. A little bit more dramatic, but close out your Big Brother worksheet and open up the crash scenario. Does everybody see where I am? If you go back to classroom, open up the crash scenario. And I'll give you a moment because I know that on that bar on the side, you got to kind of hover over it and kind of tells you what the name of each document is and all that other good stuff. Okay, you look really confused. Are you okay? Okay. Just focused. You're really, really focused. Appreciate that. Doing okay? Yeah? Katie, Luis, we good? Yeah? Good? Yeah? Everybody good? Okay. So all we're going to do, we're just going to read this together, and then I'm going to explain what I want you to do. It's fairly self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, okay? So follow along with me, and we'll kind of set up the situation here. You and some of your friends are going on a vacation. Of course, this was pre-COVID. You have heard wonderful things about the Marshall Islands, the warmth, the beautiful clear blue ocean, the scuba diving, the food. However, these islands are so remote that they are difficult to get to. You leave from Sioux Falls Airport, lay over in Denver, land in Los Angeles, fly to Honolulu, then switch flights to Rarotonga, the only airport on these far-flung, isolated islands. About 1 hour out of Honolulu, the captain reports that he is having trouble with the third engine on the right side. However, you look out your window seat on the left side and realize that there is smoke coming from two of those engines. Moments later, a clearly panicked captain breathlessly relays the news that you feared. The plane is going down. The news is met with mixed reactions, stunned silence, screams, moans, muttered prayers, sobbing. As you begin to take crash positions, you can't help but think of your family and friends back home. The plane unexpectedly begins to dive at an alarming angle. The pilot manages to get the craft relatively level just in time to skid across the ocean. The force of the impact virtually disintegrates the cabin, and water pours in. Stunned and immediately aching, you frantically grab your seat cushion and leap out the gaping hole, which was a typo there, that W should not be there, sorry about that, near you. The warmish water quickly brings you back to reality. Debris is scattered across the ocean, and pockets of flaming aviation fuel are visible. Remarkably, as you scan the horizon, you see a good-sized island approximately a mile in the distance. You struggle to kick away from the suction created as the plane continues to sink to the bottom of the ocean. After what seems like hours of swimming, you collapse on the shore, breathing heavily, your lungs on fire. After you recover, you sit up and look around you. You notice various pieces of wreckage, clothes, wrappers, and other seat cushions. As you observe the beach, you are relieved to see other survivors. There are not many. As you come together as a group, you count about 45 people. Your heart sinks as you remember there were over 250 who boarded the plane. The first thing you and the other survivors must do, other than tend to the wounded, is take stock of your situation. There is limited supplies gathered from the plane. There is very little food, and virtually no water. There is one surviving crew member. He informs you that the plane went down so fast that the captain had virtually no chance to send out a distress signal. Rescuers will have very little chance of finding you. The reality sinks in. You will likely be here a long time. It becomes evident that the island must be explored to look for the necessary elements to survive: food, water, shelter. A group of survivors volunteers to explore the island and reports to the rest. 2 days later, they return. They have good news and bad news. The good news is that there is a freshwater stream deep in the interior of the island, as well as a variety of fish, fruits, and berries. The bad news is that the island is not very big, and therefore the supplies are very limited. Your group must not waste anything and be very wise and careful about their decisions. However, the more the group discusses the situation, you begin to understand that you have another issue. How will you survive? Who will make the decisions? Will you have one leader? Many? If so, who and how will they be chosen? How will goods be distributed? Should you have rules? If so, who gets to decide and what should they be? In essence, if you're not picking it up, you are creating a society from scratch. So, here are your directions. You are part of this group of survivors then from the crash. Your task is to answer the following questions regarding the creation of a well-run society from scratch. Now, I've broken this into 3 categories, and I want you as an individual to talk about this and figure out which ones will work best for you, or you think would be best for your group. So number 1, what type of government are you going to implement? Right? Which of those 3? I've given you 3 options, which are kind of the major ideas here. What will you choose? Okay, so I know it says circle, but let's, obviously, since we can't circle it, highlight it. Highlight which one you think would work best. And then below, tell me why you think that will work best and what are the advantages and disadvantages of that system. Okay, and then look at number 2. You're going to do the same thing with the economy. Largely, the government's major responsibility deals with the economy. Who gets what and how much? That's one of the major functions of the government. So what kind of economy are you going to implement? And you can see the 3 options there. Highlight the one you want, tell me why, and then tell me the advantages and disadvantages of your selection. Okay? And then last, I want you to think about what are 5 rules in this situation. What are 5 rules, or if you will, laws that you think everybody should follow in this scenario? And then tell me why you think that. Why do you think that should be a rule that everybody should follow? Why is that important? Okay? So I tell you what, I'm going to give you about, let's see, what do we got here? I tell you what, let's come back at about 1:55. Let's come back at about 1:55-ish, and then we'll talk about this, okay? And if we need to give you more time, that's okay. But let's just, as a guideline, I'll check in at 1:55 and see where we stand. Cool? All right. Focus on that. Let's focus on that first one. What would be best? What do you think, Lindsay?
I think the first one, because since there's such a small group of people that everybody would probably, if everybody has a say-so, then there's no worrying about if somebody else is too powerful and if somebody else is weaker. So I think it'd be better if everyone had a say in everything.
Okay, so for a smaller group, democracy would work best because it's more functional that way. Everybody's equal, 1 person, 1 vote, nobody's above anybody else. Okay? Okay. Anybody disagree? What do you think, Jay? Ooh, Jay, now we got a couple. Jay, go ahead.
I choose an oligarchy
Ooh, okay. Why an oligarchy? Is that what you had too, Brooklyn? Okay. Go ahead.
because we're trying to survive. So a small committee of people who are thinking more of the big picture than personal comfort, I think would be better.
Okay, so you want a small group of people who are more leadership oriented, who kind of help run the place for everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, question for you, and maybe I saw Brooklyn shaking her head, so she kind of agrees with this. Are these people going to be appointed, or are they going to be elected?
Appointed.
Appointed by the people.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Brooklyn, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you're good.
Good talk, Brooklyn. All right, so maybe an oligarchy might be best. Okay, you have a small group of people who rule or kind of make the decisions for everybody else on the group's behalf. All right. Okay. Anybody say autocracy? One person just in charge of it all, you do what I say. You did. Why is that?
Well, because I'm trying to think.
That's okay. And we can come back to you too.
Because groups of people need to obey the leader, and the groups of people need to control the other.
Okay, so that it might result in chaos if you have too many people, too many opinions.
Yeah.
You need one person to kind of rule, okay? One ring to rule them all. Okay, maybe. Okay, good. So let's take a look then at the second one. What about economics? Okay, this is maybe a really important one, and I think, again, this is interesting because on a small island, what do we have to keep in mind? The resources are what? Limited. The resources are limited, which, by the way, it's not really that much different in the world. We just like to pretend that they're not. We certainly use them as if they are unlimited, but they are not. So let's think about this then. The biggest function of a government is deciding who will get how much and why. So what do you think? What do you think? Brooklyn, what did you put?
I think it should start off as communism, but like after a while, like turn into socialism. But like since the beginning, they have to like figure out the baseline and like share everything. Because if they start out with like capitalism, then they're just gonna take as much as they can, and then some people just like end up dying because they don't.
Okay, so until we figure out how this is going to work, we probably need to kind of, on a small scale again, have communism. Everybody's equal. We share everything. That way we know nobody's going without. Okay, and by the way, does this maybe, and I'll get to you, I'm not going to ignore you, Caleb. Do you think this maybe depends on other circumstances as well? Like, think about it this way. What if there's an 85-year-old dude? Do you think he's going to be able to gather the same resources as a 25-year-old person?
No.
What if you have somebody who got paralyzed in the flight or in the crash? Who's going to take care of them? Should they be taken care of? What about children? You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's extenuating circumstances that may change your thought process here. We don't know who these 45 people are. And by the way, not to be that guy, but depending on how long you're there, it might not stay at 45. What if we actually have children starting to be born here? Right? I mean, it's kind of an interesting circumstance to think about. Or contrarily, obviously people are going to eventually end up dying. That's inevitable. Right? So there's things to think about. Kaylee, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say socialism because, like you said, some people may need like more food, more water than others. And so, like if you had something on the plane, like your own tools or whatever, and you had it on the plane and you kept it, I feel like it would be right that you should be able to keep it and choose to use it for the good of the group. But the other things the government should be in control of, because not everybody needs the same amount of the same resources.
Okay. So not everybody should have the same amount because not everybody needs the same amount. Okay? Anybody else? Nobody said capitalism? Just take whatever you want and screw everybody else?
Communism, control their food and
Okay.
what they do.
Okay. Copel, what would you say?
I said capitalism just because I think that everyone should have to work for what they have, and like I think you should work harder than you want.
Yeah. Kind of like a John Smith Roanoke attitude, right? He that shall not work shall not eat. Right? You get what you earn. Okay. Fair. That's fair. Now, what if you take too much and everybody else doesn't have anything?
They should have got that.
They should have got there sooner. It's not my fault. Okay. So these are things that we all need to think about here, and this is definitely a discussion that we will continue to have as we go along with this unit. So for right now, go ahead. I know we have about a minute left, but keep in mind, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but keep in mind that, I know I did yesterday, we're staggering our dismissal times. I'm sure you guys know about that from other classes. Evens are going right when the bell rings, odd leave about 30 seconds later, and you're in room 123, so you do that. Okay, so before we do though, put your stuff away, that's fine, but get out your get out your phones. I really, if you haven't done so yet, I know some of you have already done this, I really, really, really want you to sign up for the Remind app. I know for looking around the room, I had a lot of you in Rising Scholars or regular American History last year, and that was a godsend, I think, communication-wise. And, knock on wood, I pray that I'm wrong. But if we have to happen to go to distance learning, this will help us tremendously to all stay on the same page communication-wise. So this is if you want to go to like Google Chrome or Safari or something like that, it's rmd.at/G9EGAD, or you can text @G9EGAD to the number 81010. Okay? And again, we have 30 seconds still after the bell, so there's plenty of time. You guys are all fast typers. I totally trust that you guys can do that. So, and if not, I will put this on the lesson plan page too. I'll put that up if you didn't catch all that. Or you can take a picture of it as well, I don't care. Okay? So make sure you sign up for that. It'll make our lives a lot easier collectively. Grab some hand sanitizer on the way out, please. Is it? Nice. I'm jealous.